Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to have Estonian President Toomas Hendrik Ilves end our conference on a high note. President Ilves is a well-known figure in diplomatic and public circles and a noteworthy representative of Estonian interests abroad. President Ilves is well known in the Estonian American circles, having grown up in New Jersey and taken part in Estonian scouting and other activities in his youth. He is a graduate of Columbia University and received an MA degree in psychology from the University of Pennsylvania in 1978. Beginning in 1984, President Ilves worked for Radio Free Europe in Munich in several positions, ending as head of the Estonian desk. From 1993 to 1996, he served in Washington as ambassador of the Republic of Estonia to the United States, Canada, and Mexico. He then moved to Estonia, where he was Minister of Foreign Affairs twice, and has been a member of both the Estonian Parliament and the European Parliament. President Ilves has actively supported the development and introduction of information and cyber technology in Estonia, for which Estonia has a worldwide reputation as an innovator. Elected President of Estonia in 2006, President Ilves is now in his second term as President. Please join me in welcoming the President of Estonia, Toomas Hendrik Ilves.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be back here in Washington. It's Estonian summer weather outside. We don't have leaves on our trees yet, but we'll get there eventually. You know, we get them for 4 months of the year. But anyway, I'm very glad to be here at JBANC, and really what I'd like to do is actually thank JBANC, one of Estonia's, and I would also add quickly, Latvia's and Lithuania's best partners in this country. Just 21 years ago this August, or 20 years ago last August, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the final departure of Soviet occupation troops, or the Red Army, from Estonian and Latvian territory. The Lithuanians were ahead of us a bit. But in any case, the only way that would have happened was through the persistent work of JBANC and Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian organizations that supplemented and complemented and added to basically all the work that Ambassador of Latvia and Lithuania and I worked on at the time, talking to Congress members, talking to the State Department, ultimately culminating in the Byrd Amendment, which then kept, or rather required, that the U.S. government certify every 3 months that there was noticeable progress in, or substantial progress in the departure of occupying troops from our territories. And while at the time this was a priority, but I don't think we really quite understood how important that would be. Let us recall, or we don't have to recall much, all we have to do is think about what happened in Crimea a year ago. That's precisely the presence of Russian troops on foreign territory that enabled the occupation and then the annexation, sounds familiar terms, right? Illegal occupation, annexation of Crimea. It was the presence of foreign troops. Now, we were here 20 years ago saying, you know, we got to get them out. And we're saying, no, it's okay, you know, it's not a problem. And we said it's a big problem. Can we imagine the situation in our countries today were we to have foreign occupying Russian troops on our territory? Imagine the kind of blackmail we would be subjected to. Of course, in addition, with the presence of foreign occupying troops on our territory, we would not have been able to join the European Union. We would not have been able to join NATO. So, in fact, this is was one of the most crucial elements of our independence, reestablishing our independence, not just formally, not just having foreign embassies on our territory. Lots of countries have foreign embassies on their territory. Moldova has it, Ukraine has a U.S. embassy, Belarus even has a U.S. embassy. But we would not be where we are today without those troops leaving, and here your contribution was absolutely vital. And so I'd like to really applaud you all for everything you did. And of course, I'd like to thank Carl here, who back then we were both a little bit lighter. Actually, I was not, but I started working out, Carl. It's not a bad idea. But anyway, I remember working with Carl in our hot little embassy. I mean, literally, because we got it cheaply. We rented it cheaply because it was a building meant for demolition. It was a great place. We were here in Washington, and it was one of those buildings where we really didn't pay much for it because we were very poor, and not only were we lucky to get paid by the state of Estonia, but they turned off the air conditioner at 5 p.m. And you know, we would work here often till 8 or 9 at night, and it's outside, it's whatever 40 degrees is in Fahrenheit. I've forgotten whatever it is. Anyway, sort of up there in 98 territory. And you'd be sitting there, and your fingers would be slipping off the keys of the the computer keyboard because everything was so sweaty. Those are hard times, and I remember Carl was one of our best sort of helpers in doing things in this town, and I think that we should all give Carl a round of applause for his work. So anyway, today things are quite different, thank God, in our region, and we have NATO policing our airspace. All of our countries have a company of U.S. troops, boots on the ground. We could do much more, actually. We could do more, and NATO can do more. On the NATO side, we're constantly told by various other NATO allies that the NATO-Russia Founding Act doesn't allow us to have permanent stationing of large amounts of troops. People often, however, if you read the NATO-Russia Founding Act, you'll see the statement that people appeal to. Actually, the full sentence is, in the current and foreseeable security environment, there will be no blah, 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 and then says substantial permanently based troops in new member states. That means us, basically. Also Poland and Hungary and the Czech Republic and Slovakia. But first of all, and one thing I would ask you all to keep in mind when you do talk to people, that the NATO-Russia Founding Act says, first of all, the sentence that supposedly prohibits stationing of more troops is, it says, in the current and foreseeable security environment. That is the line. You can Google it and you can find the agreement there. It's about 2 pages long. Well, this is not 1997. This is 2015. And at that time, basically, the Russian Air Force didn't have enough fuel to even fly once a week on their sort of weekly electronic intelligence gathering missions. They'd fly sort of, from Petersburg or Kronstadt or somewhere, and they'd along the northern coast of Estonia, along the islands, along Latvia's coast, and along Lithuania's coast. I mean, once a week they'd come and they'd say, well, turn your telephones off at that time. Today, I mean, when we look at the number of flights, the kinds of flights, bombers, fighter planes, we're in a completely different security environment. So I would argue that those provisions of the NATO-Russia Founding Act do not apply. Now, on the end of the sentence, they say substantial troop presence. If you read the memoranda of the NATO general, General Kuyat from Germany, who had actually negotiated the deal, substantial was, substantial, the term substantial meant more than a division. So that's 3,000 to 12,000, depending on what a division is in a NATO country. The definitions vary, but the point is that even at the minimal level, the NATO-Russia Founding Act, to which various other allies, except for the United States, appeal to, says, you know, basically we could have, minimally, we could have 3,000 NATO troops on our soil. That's if you still recognize the legitimacy of the NATO-Russia Founding Act, even though things have changed considerably. So it's, I mean, we could, much more can be done in our area, and when we look at the kind of rhetoric that we are faced with constantly, it's also important to note that never during the Cold War did anyone on the Soviet side, not to say the West, but no one in the Soviets ever brandished nuclear weapons. No one boasted about, well, we can bomb Warsaw, or we can bomb Tallinn, or we can bomb Finland for that matter. No one ever said that because there was a sort of a Kinderstube that existed among the Soviets, that you don't talk about things like that. That has disappeared. We see this blustering, aggressive rhetoric, threatening with nuclear weapons that frankly is, you know, I'm an old Cold Warrior. We never had that when I was an old Cold Warrior. Well, that was a young Cold Warrior. Now I'm an old Cold Warrior. So that's, all of that is important to keep in mind. The other thing, however, is when I started speaking is that, since I can't keep you too long, I only got 2 minutes left, but anyway, I said that we also have to do our part. And seeing my good friend Artis Pabriks there, I know that he will nod along with me when I say that, folks, if you don't do 2%, there's not much you can demand from the United States. 2% of GDP is what NATO members have all agreed to is the amount of funds that a country should devote to defense expenditures. And I won't embarrass anyone by quoting the numbers, but basically, folks, if the U.S.'s primary concern about NATO today is the lack of willingness to spend money on defense, then knowing that, then at least, if nothing else, do not blame NATO under any conditions for not doing enough. If you're spending 1% or less of GDP on defense, don't go around blaming NATO for not doing enough. The only people in Europe today that can whine effectively or with a right to whine and complain are the Estonians, because we're the only ones left doing 2%. Brits no longer do it. The French are trying to get up to 2%. The Poles are almost there. But unfortunately, I won't mention any names, but anyway, 1% isn't good enough. Or at least if you want to complain. If you don't want to complain, well, then you can go on doing it. But basically, let's face it, it's money talks and walks, and that's where it is today. And that's important to keep in mind. So your work, I would ask you, in addition to the superb work you have done all these years, during the occupation years, during the beginning and difficult times when we had Russian troops, and ever since then, the brilliant work you've done with the U.S., with Congress, and with the government, I thank you for that. Talk the other way, too. Try to make it clear to people that the U.S. is not, this is not an idle concern, that allies are not spending enough money. It is a genuine concern. And today, looking at where we are, we really need NATO to be there. And if we want what we say about NATO to be taken seriously, we need to pay up and pay our bills, because that's what the leading country of NATO expects of NATO allies. And if we don't do it, well then don't be surprised when the leading country of NATO says, well, I mean, come on, guys, you know. So that would be my message for today. I could talk for an hour here about, you know, Ukraine, Crimea, hybrid warfare, all those other good things, all those other terrible things. I won't do that, but I would ask JBANC to really press everyone on this issue. So thank you very much. Great to be here. All the best.
President Ilves, thank you. Thank you for being with us today. I have just a few final words to say, but I know that since I have the last word tonight, I remembered back in the old days when I was younger then, a little thinner, and 1985. It was actually, I was the age that my daughter is going to be this summer, 25. She's somewhere here in the room in the back or outside, right there. And I was interrailing through Europe, and I took a trip down to Munich, and I paid you a call, and you showed me the RFE-RL in Munich. We talked about, you told me about Estonian punk rock, which was all sort of underground then, but I realized it wasn't so underground in Estonia. And then you treated me to a beer down in the cafeteria. It was wonderful. And you actually inspired me to aspire for more. I think I'd even applied for a summer internship at RFE-RL. I didn't get it, so I ended up at JBANC. Thanks to you. But I did want to say your presence here today really underscores our conference today. And I think, and I've been calling it the most relevant conference we've had in a long time, very, very timely, just because of all the bad things that are going on now. And I think we can all aspire for more. I think about a fourth of the people here are younger people in their 20s, so we're really glad that you're all here with us. And just sort of in closing right now, I wanted to thank once again some of our sponsors. JBANC is represented by the Estonian American National Council, the American Latvian Association, the Lithuanian American Council. Thank you all for being here and with us. Our special sponsors who helped fund this event, besides the American Latvian Association, the Estonian American National Council, the World Federation of Free Latvians, and the Baltic American Freedom Foundation, whose members are here and have developed great programs to bring young Balts to the United States for internships. We had one last summer. And I will also thank Marcus Kolga, again, for providing the live feed on the internet and all the work that you're doing north of the border. But I wanted to especially thank you all for being here today. And can't just reiterate and underscore again our thanks from JBANC for your being here, Mr. Pabrix, Mr. Kubilius, and all the other panelists who joined us today. We are going to have a reception in just a few moments. You're welcome to join us. There will be actually a Ukrainian ensemble, Gerdan, who will be performing some Ukrainian and Baltic tunes. And once again, on behalf of JBANC, oh, one more thing. Speaking about the youth, Dr. Polyaslawska, thank you for your generous contribution today to support summer interns at JBANC. Thank you so much. And with that, we conclude the conference. Thank you once again, and the reception is down the hall. We'll see you there.